Yeah. Hi, friends. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank the entire YOSI and the Governing Council to give us this wonderful opportunity to start with YOSI Financial Literacy Series. With me is my co-coordinator, Dr. Nilesh Kumar, and the entire YOSI socio-cultural team. In this series of financial literacy webinars, we aim to cover from the most basic to the complex financial investment topics so that financial investment doesn't stay a jargon and it becomes easy for all of us. The primary aim of this series of webinar is going to be that anybody who attends this from start to the end will be able to invest on his own to decide rather than to rely upon a agent or a third party or a banker. And the first session in this series is called the psychology of money. And the question is why we are covering psychology of money the first. We are talking about personal finance, and it's more about the person rather than the finance. And to understand finance, it is first important to get the attitude right. This session is solely based on the wonderful work done by Mr. Morgan Housel and his book titled The Psychology of Money. Over to you, Nilesh.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rohit sir, for such a wonderful introduction. And I welcome everybody on behalf of YOSI Governing Council. And this is a much awaited series that we had planning. Dr. Rohit sir has been planning this for quite a long time. And we will have, as he said, we will have multiple sessions. We will have, this is just to make you understand, to make you self-reliant on the investment, that it is not such a complex thing. A very small step that you take can make a big difference. And it's as we had discussed when we were preparing for this series, that so many senior ophthalmologists also from a senior to us could not manage the finance, and this was just because they thought that it is very complex thing to do, and I can't do myself, and it is if I hire somebody can take my money away. So that trust factor was not there. So that's how the whole series began. And then we are thankful to YOSI Governing Council, our president, Dr. Sonal Kalia, and our Vice President, Dr. Devakant Mishra, immediate past President, Dr. Digvijay Singh, Joint Treasurer, Dr. Amnish, and most of all, the team leader for YOSI Socio-Cultural, Dr. Nupur Goyal, for making this possible. So I welcome everyone, and back to Rohit sir for introduction of our esteemed panel and speakers.
So first talk would be given by Dr. Dhaval Haria. That's on never enough. And why I chose Dr. Dhaval was, whenever I've interacted with him, he's a prolific phaco-refractive surgeon practicing in Mumbai. But from day one of practice, this guy was very secure about the way he's going to practice and always satisfied. Over to you, Dhaval.
Thank you, Rohit.
Yeah. Sorry, sir, just 1 second. Dr. Dhaval, before you start, Dr. Nupur Goyal, the team leader for socio-cultural, is here, and we would like to have her words before we start the session.
Absolutely, yeah. Nupur? Hi, Nupur. I think she's maybe busy.
She's not. Dr. Dhaval, please go ahead. We will have ma'am's word after.
I'll share my screen.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is my screen visible? Yes. Am I visible?
Yeah. You're audible and visible.
Okay. Please. Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Dhaval. Good evening, everyone. Before I start at the onset, I would like to congratulate Rohit and the team for starting such unique webinar on financial literacy. Basically, it's a very important topic which as doctors we are never taught during our training period, and it's one of the most important skill to acquire early on in the life. So it's extremely a great initiative you have taken. Now, my topic for today is never enough. It's mainly I'm going to talk about the psychological aspect of money, and it's basically inspired from the book Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If any one of you have not read this book, I strongly recommend reading it. It has opened up my mind to various concepts of personal finance, which we otherwise never even think about. So coming to never enough, to understand that, let's first understand the concept of enough. And enough is a very strong word. I would like to demonstrate this by a very simple example. So as a kid or any time when we are blowing a balloon, if we keep inflating without stopping at a particular point, we'll reach a stage where it'll burst. Now, the same analogy can be applied in personal finance as well, where it's very important to know when to stop. It's very important to understand and not get carried away till it bursts. Now, let me explain this entire thing with a very simple real world story, which was even given in this book. It is the story about Mr. Rajat Gupta. He was born in the slums of Kolkata. He made his way up through he made his way up. He eventually reached United States, became the CEO of McKinsey and Company. And around 2004, 2005, when he had retired, he had a net worth of around $100 million. So he was a well-known name in the field of finance back then. Then later on, he retired from there, and he had joined as a board of director in multiple multinational companies. During 2008, when there was a world financial crisis going on, he was he was in Goldman Sachs as a board of director, and there was some news which he was aware of that Warren Buffett was going to invest a significant sum in Goldman Sachs at that point. So he was aware about this inside news, and at that point he leaked that news. He made some trade, bought some shares of Goldman Sachs. Eventually, once Warren Buffett invested in Goldman Sachs, the shares prices shot up, and he made killing money in his trade. Eventually, later on, he was caught and he was put behind the bar for this insider trade. So, if we retrospectively analyze his story, somebody whose worth was around $100 million, he did not require to take that risk. He did not require to earn that additional money which he earned from that one trade. But that sheer greed of wanting more, the sheer never satiable attitude, which is very similar to putting more and more air in the balloon till it burst, led to his downfall. Now, in an Indian scenario also, we have some similar example, the very famous web series which we all have seen on Harshad Mehta. Harshad Mehta was a fantastic stock market investor when he began, but later on, as the greed increased, he started taking the risks which he did not require to take, which eventually led to the downfall. I agree. These both were a very criminal and an extreme example, but a non-criminal version of the same are also available. Of this behavior are also present. But very important point to take from this is we shouldn't risk what we have and what we need for what we don't have and what we don't need. Now, very few of us will end up having 100 crore rupees, but most of us will have enough, which will have enough sum of money which will be sufficient to cover all our needs and wants. So when we are going to invest our money, let's remember a few points which we should always take in mind in order to avoid major setbacks. The most and the hardest thing to learn in personal finance is to stop the goalpost from moving. Now, what we mean by that is we should have we should set our goals realistically, but we should not let our ambitions grow faster than the satisfaction. Like, for example, if you've always been wanting to have a 2 BHK house, but when you get to that, when you eventually buy your 2 BHK, you're already wanting a 3 BHK. So you'll never be able to enjoy what you have achieved through your work. And you'll still be unhappy in order to still be unhappy because you have been wanting even more than what you have achieved. So one step forward in the direction of our goal, if it pushes our goalpost 2 steps ahead, then that will give us a feeling of always falling behind. And only way to keep up with this feeling will be to take more and more risks, which eventually not let us enjoy what we have achieved through our work. So another simple example of personal finance, if I want to give, suppose we have made our equity, if we have understood our risk profile and we have divided our allocation as 60% into equity, 40% in debt and other class of investment. Suppose suddenly 6 months market has gone significantly high, we shouldn't get carried away. We shouldn't change our goal, our goal, financial goal, which we decided, and instead of 60 move to 80 or 90% into equity, because if at all there is a fall in the market, we will end up losing significant chunk eventually. So important to learn that we should decide our goals and stick to it, maybe make realistic changes in it, but don't get carried away and take too much of extra risk. Another very important factor is of social comparison. It's a rat race, which we all are part of. If a friend of mine has a bigger house, even I want a bigger house. If a friend is driving a bigger car or a luxury car, even we want one. So this constant comparison is something which we should try and avoid, especially in the practice. If a colleague is buying a particular fancier machine, a fancier angiography machine, or a LASIK machine, or any other technology which somebody else is investing in, it shouldn't be just because of the peer pressure. We also get carried away. We have to understand our scenario, whether that'll be cost effective in your practice. It'll make sense whether it's going to whether it is going to give you that return on investment which you're looking for. Analyze all the points and then take a rational decision. Majority of the time, when we are trying to keep up with others, we kind of end up derailing our own financial goals, and that is something we should try and avoid. Now, when we are talking about enough, we are definitely not talking about too little. We are definitely not talking about not being ambitious or not have adequate goals, or to restrict yourself or to restrict your goals. But what we are talking about is to have realistic target and be content and be happy with whatever we achieve at the end of it. Now, only way to know how much we can eat is how much food we can eat is by eating it till we throw up, right? But do we do that? We don't do that. So same thing, we should learn to take a pause, reevaluate before we end up risking all and we reach a point of regret. This thing is the most important thing in personal finance, where we be content with what we have and enjoy what we have achieved. There are few things which are definitely not worth risking no matter what. So whenever you're making your financial portfolio and you're deciding your allocation, there are few things which are absolutely not worth risking. It can be different for different people, but for most of us, it's our family, it's our friends, it's our reputation, it's overall our freedom. So whenever, suppose you have already made your financial plan, you have invested a particular sum in mutual funds as a passive investor. So 60% or 70% of your funds are in your investment is in mutual funds. Now, suddenly you are starting to learn direct equity investment, or you are wanting to try out FNO, which is futures and option, which you are not really sure about, or which you don't really know, as you're not very well versed with. Definitely don't invest the money which you have kept in mutual fund for your child's education, for your practice growth, or for your personal milestone, your personal goals. If you have surplus, definitely you can put in that, and as you get better at investing in those direct forms, you invest more, but don't risk all, because that's something, because if it's going to affect your family, it's definitely not worth risking. To conclude, I would like to end by saying the most, let's learn, all of us, to be content with what we have without losing an ambition to scale higher. Let's take calculated risk. And the most important thing is, let's be grateful for what we have achieved. As my 4-year son's one of the books says, let's have attitude of gratitude, which makes us at peace. Thanks for the patient here.
Thanks, Dhaval. That was a wonderful, talk. One of the things which, I heard recently when Dr. Manoj was speaking, and he told audience of 60 doctors that most of you have enough money and assets with you that you can retire today. And I was actually surprised by that statement. But then he went on to prove his statement by saying that, if you actually calculate with inflation adjusted amount you require per month to lead a decent lifestyle, and also to take care of your own healthcare expenditure and the kids' education and marriage, most of us would actually have that amount by the age of 45 or 50. So next we have
before we Dr. Nupur Goyal is waiting for
Please,
she wants
please.
We want her comments to be there before we proceed.
Absolutely.
So hi Rohit and hi Dr. Nilesh. So I would Nilesh for taking the initiative of starting this YOSI financial literacy series. I think it's a very, very important part, as young ophthalmologists, we should all be aware of. And I wish you all the very best. And right now you're under the socio-cultural banner, and I'm happy to, we as a part of this team, you're initiating this. So it's a wonderful thing. And I also would like to congratulate Dr. Dhaval for giving such a wonderful talk, for setting the stage for this, the entire financial series, and wishing everyone all the best. I'm very sure that all the young ophthalmologists will benefit with this, financial literacy, and all the very best. All the very best. Yeah, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your kind. Rohit sir, we will have discussion. We'll have discussion in the end, at the end, so that we can have a free-flowing discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, so,
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Please introduce the next speaker. Sir.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks Nupur for always being supportive, and she has always been encouraging me and to start the financial webinars, financial literacy webinars. So the second talk is by Dr. Harshit Vaidya. He is a fantastic vitreoretinal surgeon, and we have had numerous discussions recently on various topics about life and practice as a whole. And he's going to speak on what is known as the 8th wonder of the world, that is compounding. Welcome, Dr. Harshit. You need to unmute yourself.
Harshit, please unmute.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Is the screen visible?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's get into it. So basically, if you were given an option of choosing $1 million right now, as opposed to doubling 1 cent each day for the next 30 days, how many of us would choose either option 1 or 2? I'm sure most of us, including me, would go ahead with option 1. Take away the $1 million and sit happily. But what if we choose the second option? What if we let the 1 cent double each day? To our surprise, at the end of the day 30, we'll be sitting on 5 times the amount that we'll be having, as opposed to if we chose an instant gratification, an instant result of $1 million right away. Well, that is the actual confusing part of compounding, right? It's actually unfathomable. At times, our brains are not wired to take in the compounding effects. Human brains are wired to think more linearly. The exponential growth, the geometric growth is slightly difficult for our brains to comprehend. With this, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Harshit Vaidya, a vitreoretina surgeon, and I would like to give a special shout out to Dr. Rohit Modi and the entire YOSI team, including Dr. Nilesh, for this wonderful initiative. Basically, like Dr. Dhaval alluded to, we as doctors are invariably all our lives we're just studying, and we'll end up forgetting the very crucial aspect of finance, which gets muddled in the entire education. And when we're starting our practices, we'll end up forgetting these basic finances, how to go ahead with our finances. So I have a small disclaimer to make. I am no expert in finance like Dr. Dhaval and the rest of us, Dr. Raj would be. I am a novice myself, but as Dr. Rohit was starting off and as he was discussing the topic of financial literacy series, the intent of this entire series and this particular session is to all of us to understand the very nuance and the psychology behind our investment decisions and to make better financial decisions for the long term. So with that caveat, I move ahead. Like Dr. Rohit already mentioned, right? Even the great Albert Einstein couldn't keep himself away from talking about the eighth wonder. Well, he did call compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He said, "He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Well, we don't really know if he actually said this, but the actual statement is absolutely irrefutable, right? So, what exactly is compounding, right? So, compounding is basically a mathematical principle that comes from the idea of compound interest. Basically, interest accruing interest. In other terms, increasing the value of an asset due to the interest earned on both the principal as well as the accumulated interest. And the cycle, if we keep on repeating and reinvesting the amount as well as the interest, with time, this tiny principal lands up snowballing into really large sums. But the compound effect or the compounding is not just limited to the financial model. Well, it is rather a mental model which works in all areas of life, be it health, be it relationships, or be it knowledge. In the book by The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, he gave a brilliant graph, as we can see here, which says that compound effect is always working, whether we like it or we don't. It is if we choose to make it work for us or if you ignore it and experience the negative effects of compounding. So our choices, our behaviors, and our habits in the long run have compounding effects, either be it good or be it bad. A similar concept was conceptualized by James Clear in his book, The Atomic Habits, wherein he talks about the habit compounding, where he says that if we were to improve by 1% per day for the next 1 year, we'd be 38 times better off from the baseline. Well, possibly in the practical terms, this is not possible, right? But if the concept behind it, wherein the small, tiny changes giving marvelous results at the end, is absolutely what compounding is all about. And this is what they've alluded to. So, coming to the next part, wherein this was a simple test which was done at the Stanford University in the 1970s, which is called as the marshmallow test. Basically, this test realized that even 4-year-olds who could delay their gratification at that very tender age landed up being more successful, not just financially, but health wise, as well as education wise, when these children were followed in adulthood. This example can be better alluded to by this Chinese bamboo tree. Let's take a listen to Rahul Dravid, the Indian legend batsman, who was speaking about the Chinese bamboo tree as an example of growth in itself. Well, this very neat and simple example of the Chinese bamboo tree has its implications in the finance world itself, right? It's not just that the tree grows by 90 feet in the 6 weeks. Even our finances, if it's nurtured over time, given its duration of compounding over years, gives us the exact benefits of the Chinese bamboo tree in 6 weeks that we get. So we all know this gentleman, the richest investor of all time, Mr. Warren Buffett. So by 2020, gentleman's worth was $84.5 billion, right? But do we know that he accumulated $84.2 billion of this wealth by his 50th birthday, and $81.5 billion came after his 65th birthday. But more surprising is, do we know when did he start his investment journey? Well, he started at the tender age of 10 and 11 years. And by the age of 30 years, he was already a millionaire. But what if, like the rest of us, like regular people, he enjoyed in his teens and in his 20s? How much sum would he have accrued by the age of 30? Probably $25,000, right? And what if he invested this $25,000 for the next 30 years and then retired? What would the sum be today? He's 90 plus today. Well, he would be 99.9% less rich as opposed to his current wealth. A staggering 99.9. You can see that his net worth would have been $11.9 million as opposed to $84.5 billion, which is his current net worth as of 2020. So we do know that Warren Buffett's key skill was investing, but his secret sauce was time. This is where the compounding comes into play. So the richest investor of all time is, we know, Mr. Warren Buffett. But do we know this gentleman on the right? I'm sure most of us are actually surprised. Even I had to do a bit of digging to understand who this gentleman was. This is Mr. Jim Simmons. He is a hedge fund manager in the United States. He is actually a billionaire himself. But do we know that he is actually one of the greatest investors of all time, having an average annual return of 66%, which is almost thrice as opposed to Mr. Warren Buffett, who had an annual return of 22%. But why? What is the difference between the two? Why isn't Jim Simmons, even in spite of being the best investor, not the richest investor? Well, the difference is Mr. Jim Simmons started his investment journey in the year of 1988, which is almost about three to 4 decades later than Warren Buffett. And this resulted in him being 75% less rich compared to Warren Buffett. Of course, both are billionaires, but we are talking about relative terms and how the time helps in compounding the money. But what if Jim Simmons were to have the same 7-decade investment the way Warren Buffett did? Can we even take a guess of the amount that he'd be having? Well, this is a sum that I've never heard of, but this is the amount he'd be actually worth, 63 quintillion. Now, these numbers are actually probably impractical, but the concept behind time being the most important factor in compounding stays true. This is a different example which says that by starting early helps in compounding. So here we can see that investor one starts at the age of 25, right? He sets apart $5,000 per year for the next 10 years in a row and does no more investment after the age of 34. We have the investor number two who starts at the age of 35, just a decade later, but continues investing for the next 30 years till the age of 65. In spite of having 30 more years of investing, the investor two is still 30% short of the investor one. So in an ideal scenario, we want both, the best of both. We want to start off early like the investor one and stay true to investing like the investor two, right? So to conclude, the rules of compounding are as simple, but yet the most difficult to follow. The point is to start now. To get the best benefits of compounding, we need to start now. As rule number two would be to be consistent about it. We will have bad days. We may not be able to continually do the same amount of investing. But the point being that we have to be consistent with our investment portfolios. And next, last but not the least, making time our friend, having patience and perseverance, a drawback of our generation, but something which we need to be true to and ensure that the compounding takes its effects over a long period of time to do its magic. Thank you one and all for a patient hearing.
Thank you, Harshit, for a wonderful talk. Nilesh, is it okay? I just wanted to explain a simple concept.
Yeah, please, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So
I have this.
Yeah. So, this is basically a simple SIP calculator on one of the mutual funds website, which, we all can access to. Now, let's say as an ophthalmologist, in the initial years, I want to invest somewhere around a lakh rupees a month. And I am consistently doing it for 20 years and at 12% rate of interest. With the kind of growth we are seeing in India, 12% is relatively a very, very, under achievement. Something like 14 or 15% would be what we are looking at. And at 15%, you just see in 20 years, the amount accumulated is 15.2 crores. That is 20 years. Now, this 20 years, let the magic of time play over it. And suddenly, the amount increases to 32 crores. Now, 1 lakh is something which we can easily invest, most of us, I believe. And when your practice starts doing well, if I just slightly increase the amount to 2.5 lakh rupees a month for next 25 years. So let's say most of us would be between the age of 35 and 40. And we are thinking to invest, actively work and invest till the age of 60. Here I am also not increasing the amount which we are going to increase in investment as our inflation increases, our earnings increase. We just keep it at 2.5 lakh rupees a month. And we see in 25 years, we have made 84 crore rupees. That is something, a very good amount at that point of time also, with a simple investment strategy of 2.5 lakh rupees. That's what the power of compounding is. Thank you.
Very, very true. What you had shown, sir. And once we go on to all these calculators, and then we see this is a text-based calculator, but you have also graphic-based where you can see a pie chart, and then you will know how impactful the compounding is. And somebody had told me when I started investing into mutual fund when I was in my PG days, and I started with 1500, 10% of my stipend I was investing into SIPs. And somebody told me that don't worry, you are investing so less, but after 5 years, what you are investing in a month will be your day's profit. And it was actually true. At the end of my PG, COVID wave came and there was a bull run, and I was making around 3,000 to 4,000 profit per day. That was the bull run. That was the amount of gain we could get if we just give. It was only 3 years. Imagine that going for 30 years and then giving me returns. So, so we will go to the next talk. So,
yeah,
yes.
I wish somebody would have told me this SIP thing in my fellowship. Yeah. So the next talk is going to be by Dr. Raj Shah. He is a wonderful pediatric ophthalmologist as well as a phaco-refractive surgeon. His topic is going to be Tails You Win. Dr. Raj, over to you.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, YOSI, and thank you, Dr. Rohit, for the opportunity here given to me. So my topic for today. Is my screen visible? Am I audible?
Yeah, please, sir. Please go ahead.
Screen is visible, right? So I'll start. So topic for today given to me is Tails You Win. Okay, so basically this topic for today is from this book, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Tails You Win. Basically, the concept here is what's written in the line below. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. Basically, we'll go into this in detail. So basically, it's about investing. So when you invest, you will find, especially in stock markets and all, so some stocks will work, some won't work, and some will give you stupendous returns. So this statement is regarding that. You can be wrong half the time in your selection of the stocks, but still whatever works for you will make you a good fortune. Basically, first let us understand what is this tail risk or tail event. So tail risk refers to a type of risk which is a very rare and extreme kind of a risk. They have a very low possibility of happening, but when they happen, they have a very huge impact. Some examples of such cases are natural disasters, market crashes, any geopolitical event which leads to secondary effects on the stock market. Like during COVID, we had the effects. Like suddenly the market was, half down from around 42,000 or 45,000. It crashed to around 25,000. So that's what we call as a tail risk, which is the chance of that event happening is very less. But when that event happens, it has a very huge impact in whatever way. It can be a positive or a negative way. So tail risk is defined. Just a second. Yeah, so basically, you see, this graph will help you understand what this tail risk and all this, what we are talking about. So for example, if you see, this is a normal distribution curve. So in this normal distribution, this central part is the mean. On both sides, 3 standard deviations, we consider that as part of normal. So what happens is most of the stocks or things that you buy will give you some return. Some will give you maybe around 25%, 30%, 40% return. Some might not be doing good and they might give you a little less return. Like your principal amount might have reduced also. So those are your losses on the left side of the standard of the mean. On the right side is things that have gained. So basically, what this tail risk or the tail this event is when this outlier, the last portion, you can see this blue line, and beyond that, whatever stocks happen. On the left hand side, there will be stocks which have lost a lot of money. On the right hand side, there will be stocks which have gained a lot of money. Okay. So next, a lot of things in business and investing is also, similar things. So long tails, the farthest ends of distribution of outcomes have tremendous influence in finance, whereas a small number of events can account for a majority of the outcomes. An investor can be wrong half the time and still make a lot of fortune. So one example of this tail event or this tail risk that we are talking about is Steamboat Willie put Walt Disney on the map as an animator. The business success for Walt Disney was another story. Disney's first studio that they opened went bankrupt. His films were very expensive to produce and were, financed at outrageous terms. By the mid 1930s, Disney had produced more than 400 cartoons. Most of them were short, most of them were loved by their viewers, and most of them also lost a lot of fortune, means a lot of money was lost in making these cartoons. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that was one of the movies or thing that happened that made at that time, that changed everything. The $8 million that it earned in the first 6 months of 1938 was an order of magnitude higher than anything that the company has earned previously. It literally transformed Disney Studios. With all this money, all the company debts were paid off. So in business terms, it was this 83 minutes of Snow White that all that mattered. So basically, out of those 400 cartoons that they made and whatever, this one outlier was there. This one tail event occurred in that Walt Disney, which transformed their entire fortunes, which made all the money. So one example of tail-driven industries means, like, for example, take venture capitalists. Like if the capitalist means these programs and that we see right now, Shark Tank and all, they are all venture capitalists. They invest into a business, they invest in multiple businesses. Some businesses do okay, some businesses do well, few businesses do extremely well. So like if a VC means a venture capitalist makes 50 investments, they are likely expect half of them to fail, 10 to do little well, but 1 or 2 will be bonanzas, which will drive 100% of the fund returns. So one of the studies that they had done, like from 2004 to 2014, they had 21,000 the companies that invested in 21,000 companies. Out of that, when they analyzed the data, 65% of their money or the companies that they had invested in had lost money. 2.5% of the investments became 10 or 20x or times. 1% of these companies, 21,000 investments, became 20 times. Only 0.5%, which is only 100 companies out of these 21,000 companies, earned more than 50 times what they had invested. So that's where the majority of the returns came from, not from these 21,000 companies, but out of those 21,000, only these 100 companies, which gave them the phenomenal returns. And then it turned out that they, made lots of profits. So anything that is huge, profitable, famous, influential is a result of a tail event, which is an outlying event, which is 1 in 1,000 or 1 in million maybe. So sometimes it's a myth. So one of the points mentioned in the book that we refer to is this, that some people say that you should invest in big companies or in large companies. They are very stable and they will always give you good returns. They are safe investments. So like if you want safer, predictable, more stable returns, you invest in large public companies. But the book says that you might think, but it's not the truth. Remember, tails drive everything. So even the distribution of success among the large public stocks is similar. It's not much different from then it was what we saw in the venture capital. Most of the public companies, out of the analysis that they did in US also, turned out to be duds. A few did well, but a handful became extraordinary winners, which accounted for majority of the stock market returns of the large public companies. So like, for example, tail events in companies, like for example, Amazon in 2018 drove almost 6% of the S&P 500 returns, which is the US index. And Amazon's growth almost entirely came from Prime and Amazon Web Services. So these two events, the Prime and the web services, when they started, these returns they could start generating, which itself are tail events in a company which experimented with hundreds of products. They initially launched some Fire phone. They were into travel agency business. They did many things. But then when they did these two things, which clicked, and when it clicked, it multiplied multiple times. Even for Apple was responsible for almost 7% of the entire index return in 2018. And one product, which is iPhone, was driving all that entire returns for Apple. So the idea is that there is always this tail event or this something outlier which will give you just tremendous returns, which will even compensate for your losses that you had in the past. The idea that a few things account for most results is not true just for companies in your investment portfolio. It's also part of your own behavior as an investor. Like everything that you invest in will not become multi-bagger or will not earn you, thousands, or will not double or become 10 times. So that is one thing that you have to inculcate in you as a behavior, that some things will give me a little bit of loss, some things will be neutral, like jitne mein liya tha, it is still at the same level. Sometimes something might give you 10, 20, 50% returns over a period of 2-3 years. But then few stocks that you will buy might turn outliers and they might, just become 10 times, 50 times or 100 times what you had invested in initially with time. So basic concept is tails drive everything. When you accept that tails drive everything in business, investing in finance, you realize that it's normal for a lot of things to go wrong, break, fail or fall. Means your investment strategies, sometimes if you've invested in 10 different stocks, you might, falter in those. But then if you have 3-4 good outlier stocks in your portfolio, they will give you the returns, will cover up for all the minor losses that you would have incurred. Even for Warren Buffett, that's the same is true. At Berkshire, there was shareholder meeting. He said he owned 400 to 500 stocks during his lifetime, but made most of his money on 10 of them, not on the other remaining of stocks that even Warren Buffett had. Even he did not have a very high ratio that whatever he bought and it used to work. No, but those 10 stocks that which worked were the tails, which made him a winner in the long run. It's not whether you are right or wrong that's important, said by George Soros, but how much money you make when you are right and how much money you lose when you are wrong. You can be wrong half the time but still make a fortune. It's the same thing, but it's valid all throughout. So here I'll give you a few examples and finish by it. Like Indian investors who had these tail event stocks with their this thing, and today they are big investors. One of them is Vijay Kedia. In 2004-05, he invested in 3 companies which people felt are not worth investing at that time. Aegis Logistics, Serra Sanitary Ware, Atul Auto. But he had conviction that no, these stocks might work. He bought them and he had some patience with them. So after nearly a decade, when the value of all these companies appreciated almost 100 times, he made all his returns. So Kedia, who just started with 35,000 rupees, has a current portfolio of almost 1,000 crore rupees. One very not known example, Muhammad Anwar Ahmed. He was a small farmer who sold a land, 80,000 he had, but this is long back story. When around 1980s or 75, so he had invested 10,000 rupees in Azim, this Mohammad Premji, who is Azim Premji's father. The company we know as Wipro today, but initially it started as a vegetable company in somewhere in north of India. So the company was then called as Western India Vegetable Products Limited. So he just invested 10,000 rupees, bought 100 shares, and till date he did not sell any of his shares. So 10,000 rupees of 1980 ka time ka. But then with that 10,000 without selling anything, today the worth of that 10,000 rupees is more than 500 crore rupees. A small farmer in his locality, he found out that some Vanaspati ghee business is going on. He invested money there. He did not sell it for years altogether, around 2-3 decades, 4 decades. And today his worth is like 500 crore, more than 500 crore of those stocks. and 118 CR just the dividends till 2017 is what he had got. This is a chart showing that same thing, like Wipro in 100 shares bought in 1980. The worth of it today, without selling a single share, without reinvesting, without not investing more also, just keeping those 100 shares as they were. Splits were there, bonuses were there all along, and after that in 2019, 2 CR 56 lakh is the worth of that 100 shares, 10,000 invested at that time. So basically, it is these tails. Tails means those events that don't occur daily, that occur very rarely, but when they occur, they have a huge impact. Even Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, we know him now, he's no more, but he's the like Warren Buffett of the Indian stock market, as we call it. So even he had these few stocks like Tata Tea, which he had bought initially. From those profits, he bought Sesa Goa, which is today's known as Vedanta stock. Then that gave him a little bit of earning. Then he diversified into these Titan, Chrysil, Prog, Escorts. These 4-5 stocks, he has hundreds of stocks in his portfolio. But it is these 6 stocks that you see in the red that gave him all the return and made him Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. So numerous other millionaires and billionaires have earned their wealth through the share market. However, they displayed traits like curiosity, the thirst for knowledge, discipline, and above all, perseverance. They persisted. Like 100 stocks they bought, they kept that stock for a period of time. So with the compounding effect, with all the other things, then they were successful in their investing. So you can do it too. You only need to start and not look back. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raj. It was really a well encapsulated talk covering everything about the tail event. Actually, it is true that, but one common thing to notice about in all these examples there is time that is needed. Nobody should be in a hurry. And if somebody is telling you, to all the youngsters who are here and who will be listening later on YouTube, if anybody is telling that your money will get compounded in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 300% return, 400% return, just run as fast as you can in the opposite direction, and only have the realistic expectation of 10, 15, 20%, maximum 25%, not more than that, and let the time and compounding do its magic. So
yeah, Nilesh, wonderful point actually I to include, because we are so-called high net worth individuals, and for bankers we are easy targets. And especially when the financial year is ending, we end up getting a call from the banker. In fact, if I have a more than X amount of money in my bank account, my banker ends up calling me and saying कि sir ये scheme है, आप FD कर दो, आप ये कर दीजिए. So anybody who's calling from their own side, and we have not requested for a call, just be careful. There could be a hidden agenda. And Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, if you search on YouTube, you will get the statement he had made. If you are making 15-16% return, that's above average return. If you're making 18% return a year on year, that is phenomenal. And if you're making more than 20%, you're going to be an emperor. So year on year in the long term. So even 14-15% return can give you a huge amount. And we saw that with the SIP calculator. Next, we have for the last talk of the day, Dr. Shivani Patnaik, an amazing person. She's going to speak on the man in the car paradox. Dr. Shivani, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. So for the last talk, it's the most unexperienced person and a new member of the YOSI. I would like to thank Dr. Rohit Modi for including me in this. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to thank YOSI and Dr. Rohit Modi for including me, for allowing me to be a part of this discussion. There's a lot about finance that I've learned from him, from the discussions that I've had whenever he has come over, and it's been a rich discussion every time. So he's asked me to speak about the man in the car paradox. Now, about this book called Psychology of Money, I've read it when I had no idea about saving, but I read it because we had to give a talk when we were in our PG. And our mentor at that time was very, very hell-bent on us knowing about financial importance, the importance of saving. So we read that at that time, but no idea why we read it and what we read it for. So when I revised it again, it was only for Dr. Rohit Modi. So when I read it, now I understood the true meaning of it, because now that we started saving, we know what it is for. So man in the car paradox is basically, I would just like to show the short video. I don't know if the audio is audible. This is from a movie called Confessions of a Shopaholic. And
when I was a little girl, there were real prices and mom prices. Real prices got you shiny, sparkly things that lasted 3 weeks, and mom prices got you brown things that lasted forever.
Did you notice they were 50%? Oh, yes,
But when a world where grown-up girls got what they wanted. They were beautiful.
So this is a video which shows that the little girl that is going to the shop with her mom gets to choose the reasonable item, whereas what she wants is actually the shiny item. So she looks at something which is unapproachable, unachievable, and wants it for herself. So the man in the car paradox is something like what Shahrukh Khan sees. So just to be a little informal, so when somebody gets out of a very, very expensive and good looking car, the person who gets out of that car barely gets noticed. The person who is actually driving the car barely gets noticed. It's just the car that is visible to people who actually want to get the car for themselves, so that to be the person who's actually driving the car instead of owning the car. So it's about the respect and the admiration that the person who is driving the car demands, rather than having the object itself. So material gains versus what we're actually saving and earning for. So people who drive luxurious cars seem to attract more attention, but it is the car and not the person driving it who gets to enjoy the attention. What people see when they watch a head-turning car pass by is the lack of it in their lives, and this is the paradox. So in finance, however unexperienced I may be, but the man who bought this car is exactly for the attention, admiration, and respect of the people. Now, I have been around people and I have been with people who have expensive cars. So when I ask them, why do you buy this car? It's some of them say that it is because I admire the technology, or I admire the engine, or this or that, or something regarding the technical aspect of the car. Those people are some who are born with that kind of wealth to admire the technical aspects of the car and to upgrade. But the reason that XYZ people have bought that car is because they want to be recognized in society as having that car. So they'll be recognized as respected or admired, or people who have made it in life. So do they receive any of that admiration? Very unlikely, because when I look at a Lamborghini that is driving across Juhu or BKC, I look at the car and I think, and I myself think, why can't I have that car? I don't even imagine to look at the driver who is driving that car. So people who are looking at that imagine themselves getting into the paradoxical aspect of ownership of the car. So where do we stand in this? Social media rules our mind nowadays. So this part of the book is it's a giant ecosystem of comparisons that we are living amongst. So colleagues who are flaunting the latest equipment. So someone who has, with all due respect, a very giant practice with a lot of latest equipment, and versus somebody who has started with a humble practice with a hand-me-down equipment or a microscope, which is secondhand, feels like, yes, I should upgrade to this XYZ equipment so as to improve the outcome. No, but so as to improve my standing in society, that I have an XYZ microscope or I have a XYZ machine, so as to improve my standing in society, so that I can print on my file that I have this is XYZ equipment, so please come to me. So of course, it makes a difference, but many factors to consider before purchase and upgradation of machines. So as I explained in the first slide, I have been working with people who have, of course, the ability to buy such machines. I have worked with Dr. Kulin Kothari in the past, and I've worked with Dr. Kumar now. So it's just mind-boggling the kind of machines that they have. It's just that they have not bought the machines to show that they have those machines. They have quite a good knowledge about it, but it's just that when I myself as a private practitioner think that I want to buy this machine for myself, there are many factors to consider. It's not just acquiring the machine and implementing it in practice. Patient, of course, gets very caught up in those things, that there are latest machines or the latest femto or the latest biometric technology, which will take away even the 0.001 number. But to acquire that machine, I will have to take XYZ money up from the market or else from somebody. And then it doesn't end there. There is CMC, there is AMC, a lot of things to think about. So the factor to upgrade and purchase and keep upgrading and then keep paying that off, I have to have that much capital. And for that, we need to start saving. So objects in the mirror here are closer than they appear. So when you want to buy something, if you had that much capital, you have to know that it has to give you that much returns. So just because somebody else has it in the market, for you to have it in your practice, you have to have a very practical approach as to how you're going to pay it off and how it is going to give you returns. So leverage the power of compounding. So as we learned in the very, very rich discussion that we had about compounding earlier on in the second discussion, Warren Buffett had already invested $1 million by the age of 30. That's very difficult for us doctors. And when I look at this, the chat discussion that we are having right now, so someone has said that we doctors don't invest very, very late in life. Like by the time we are 40 or 50, we start investing in life, which is what is a drawback in our case. And someone has replied to that very nicely, saying that we should have invested by the time you were born, but today is the right time to invest, which is true, which is what I feel is actually true, that now is the right time to invest. So time is the secret to success. You don't need quick and sky high returns. Investments with reasonable results over time, and make your money last. That means invest early and wait for the beanstalk to start growing. So if you think about today, I'll invest, tomorrow I'll invest, and the right amount to invest. I always used to think that chalo paise ho jayenge to 1 lakh invest karungi directly. But then slowly with discussions with people who know about this, people who know about finance, people who know more about the topic, I realized that even putting my 2 cents in investing XYZ amount, even if I don't have 1 lakh to invest at this point, investing a small amount will definitely lead to results somehow instead of investing zero. So here the importance of earning more. It is not so there's a book that has made an impact in our lives, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It is not about how much money you make, but how much money you save. I disagree in one part of this, because you can't save like a security guard. So security guard will save less, you will save more because you're a doctor, you're earning more. So it depends from person to person. The daily expenses, the basic necessities need to be covered. Then the importance of earning more starts coming into the picture. Once you have your basic necessities covered, which I wouldn't say most of us have, because some of us really, there are people who are breaking even. There are people who are just earning beyond, because who have just started their practice, who are just getting into the game. They are struggling to break even. They are struggling to find case after case and make their name. And it's a big toss up between trying to find a place and getting a practice set up. Of course, this is an entirely different discussion, but the paradox lies here that if someone is already having a setup which is completely established and they are upgrading from system to system to system, it is not necessary that you should feel that you should be in the shoes of that person. It is important to take inspiration from there, but don't expect the same returns, the same kind of implementation in your practice. Basic needs have to be taken care of. So strategies to increase the income could be, in my opinion, invest in education and professional growth. Build a side hustle. Many of us, I have seen, not me, but most of my colleagues have a side business going on. So this is something that I need to explore, which I haven't tried yet, but they do have something going on the side, some investment or some business going on. Multiple income streams, they always help to earn more. If income is not an issue, then please invest early. So this is another small ad that I used to see in childhood. So this, according to me, explains the paradox of man in the car very, very well, because you look at your neighbor, he's progressing in life, he's made it in life, and he has a new house, a new car all of a sudden, and he's progressing, made it, and you feel, why not me? Why not me? So it just means that you have to live according to your own parameters, not just because you will get admiration and respect in the society, but because you have to build your own wealth. So live below your means, not asking for lifestyle compromises, but modifications. And the paradox has to be remembered in all luxury purchases. So after reading that book, it is this much impact has been made in my life. I'm not saying that the entire book is actualized in my being, but I'm saying that this much difference has been made. When I look at a luxury product, I always think that, is it worth it? So that impact is most important. System budgeting, a 50-30-20 rule. Of course, this depends. If your income increases, then your saving has to increase. It can't just be 50-20-30. It has to change. So this is a ratio that keeps on changing. Strike the right balance. Financial success is balancing and earning more and spending less. Being an extremist on either side of the strategies will be disastrous. So the lesson that I learned from this chapter is that the real measure of our wealth is how much we would be worth if we lost all our money. So saving is extremely important, no matter what stage in life. It's very important to start saving. So if we purchase possessions to gain social approval and attention, you'll be waiting indefinitely to get them. Considering your possessions as a means of getting people's attention is a flawed strategy. Use this paradox to channelize impulses while buying houses, cars, watches, etc. And finally, no one is impressed by your material possessions as much as yourself. Look more at utility and usefulness than social attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Shivani, for a wonderful talk. And, her talk had so much to learn from, especially the kind of, corollaries she gave in her opt-health practice. One of the interesting things which I came across in the book, which is titled Balance, was the isolated desert island test. So, whenever we are buying something luxurious, we need to ask ourselves if we are on a isolated, desert island, are we going to buy the same product at the same price, or are we buying it to impress anybody? And the other interesting thing which Harshit introduced me to was the almanac of Naval Ravikant. And he has a beautiful, statement in that book saying that, if you put me in any English-speaking country without any money, I would again become wealthy in 6 to 8 years. So a real rich person is the one who can generate wealth on his own, rather than, somebody who has a lot of money. So,
it basically, so like you said, Dr. Rohit, it's basically what he talks about is upskilling yourself, So
yeah,
if you've upskilled yourself at any situation, you can land up earning. So that's, I think, the key to success, financially or otherwise.
yeah, true.
Rohit sir, before we move ahead, I just want to make a quick disclaimer to all those who are listening. There is a lot of us actually confuse between our business investment and our personal investment, and that is a very bad thing to do. And that we realize it later in our life that there should be two different. That these two should be different. Your business income is different, and your personal income is a part of your business income. So if you are starting your own practice, or you are early into your practice, make yourself a payment, a salary. First of month, or first day of month, or first week of month, you get draw a salary, say of 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh, whatever your need be, and rest everything goes into the business. And then the business investment is different, and your personal investment, what we are talking about, comes from that salary that you are drawing. So please don't make these two, don't mix these two up. You have to take calculated risk in your business, but for your personal security, you don't have to take those risks. You have to be safe and secure. That's why you have to be, these two baskets should always be different right from the start.
Sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Nilesh, I just wanted to ask a question. If someone is just starting into practice with very low, like basically they're breaking even. So how do they decide this percentage of salary to oneself, and compartmentalizing these two things? Because as I understand it, and so basically my background is that I come from a family of private practitioners, but I am the one who has chosen institutional. But it's just that I would like to know that how do you select that this is my salary, And this is what goes into my, I know that this is a very broad topic, but selecting for someone who has started anew to set out XYZ as this is my salary and this goes into my professional income and this is my personal income, I find it a little difficult to understand. So if you could just elaborate.
I come from a family of private practitioners. I am second generation ophthalmologist. My father started from scratch, basically.
Yes, yes.
So he couldn't make this difference. In his finance, he couldn't make, everything was like mixed up, and it was a need at that time, because when you're starting up, then surely you can't exactly differentiate what you need and what you like what your business need and then your personal thing is. Then you have to what you told in your own talk is like 50% of your need, that salary you have to draw, so that you draw your needs and your wants can wait. So the basic salary that you're drawing is what you need for your rent, your electricity, your child's education. Those three things you have to take it out, and the rest everything, as your business grow, you start just increasing it bit by bit and then take it forward, and rest everything goes into business. Because if you are saving for your personal thing and you're not reinvesting in your business, then the business won't grow at that pace, and the best place to invest is your business. Nothing can grow as your business.
Dr. Nilesh, I think just like you, even I'm a second generation ophthalmologist, and I understand what you're getting at. So initially, even my father couldn't, differentiate the two. But I think the question being raised is actually slightly more nuanced for people who started off. So probably for people like you and me, probably at a different stage, it's easier for us to, make the differentiation.
I am talking about the initial thing, when like if somebody is from first generation, you calculate what you need and then you take out that salary, and then you don't focus on personal finance that much at that time, because the need is to grow your business to that much that you are getting secure. And then you start
on this. Sorry, I being a first generation doctor, though I have a lot of financial support from the family. Sorry to interrupt, but what I feel is, even when we are starting fresh, we can develop a habit of investing even a small amount, something like 5K a month or a 10K a month. I'm not talking about in lakhs. So, as an ophthalmologist, even when we are putting up a practice, I believe there is huge amount of scope, even in mega cities like Mumbai, where there are 1,500 or 2,000 ophthalmologists and multiple eye care chains and all, but still there is scope, and that's the reason we are putting up practice. So even 5K or 10K a month will get into your habit and attitude. That is what we all wanted to stress. And then as your income increases, you can always so even when you're paying your EMIs, at least save a small amount just to develop the habit. I could be wrong. I'm just
no. I think you're completely right, Dr. Rohit. I think that's exactly the key, in which it's the habit. Actually, it's how we discuss in the book. It's the compounding of the habit. If you can start off even with like an internship, I think we used to get 6,000 rupees in an internship back then. I started with saving 500 rupees. I mean, it was just to get into the habit of it more than anything. It may not sum to a large amount, but actually it's the habit. So I partly agree with Dr. Rohit on this, but it's the habit. But what Dr. Nilesh was trying to say is differentiating the business and the personal finance. Maybe in the initial stages, it's difficult to do that broadly, but making a habit of just small savings is possible.
That point is very well valid. 5 years into practice, what Nilesh said was completely right, that with your personal finance, you're not going to take any risk. And with your clinic finances or your practice finances, you may take risk, you may take chances to grow your practice and all, but you know that you have something to fall back upon.
So, and personal finance is not personal investment is not just only to like save money. So what I did when I went into I joined my PG, so I bought a washing machine. So my consultant was asking, you are living bachelor, why are you buying this washing machine? It is not an investment, and you are just wasting your money. You have father's money, so you are just buying that for your thing. But when I calculated and I told him that this washing machine has cost me around 6,500 rupees, it was just a basic thing. And when I calculated, I told him in the next 3 years, I am going to save 24,000 rupees on laundry services because I'm doing my laundry myself. 24,000 in 3 months. So it is not just about like taking out and putting it into your bank. Just small saving whenever you are going and buying thing, you just see if it is cost effective or not, and then that can grow later.
Absolutely.
So somebody asked in the chat that do stocks also compound, or is it only mutual fund? Anybody can take. Dr. Raz.
So stocks, see, compounding is basically, as was told in the lecture by Dr. Harshit, compounding means on your interest, you earn interest. So in stocks and all that, you don't get any interest. But compounding effect means here, see, in a bank, when you put it at 5% FD or 10% is your FD return, whatever interest you get every year, that gets compounded. Compounding means, see, in stocks and all, there is no fixed return. Like ये stock लोगे तो 10% मिलेगा, ये stock लोगे तो 20% मिलेगा. It is when the stock grows over a period of time. Like if the company grows, if that sector grows, if the management is good, you have bought the stock at the right price. You know, if there is a boom in that particular sector, like initially we saw during this COVID and all, two sectors which flourished were pharma and IT. The two sectors which flourished because those businesses were going on. IT businesses were going on during COVID also. So basically, compounding means whatever money you have kept, like that. See that Wipro example that you saw, 100 stocks they bought and they kept it over a period of time. There is no assurance that it will get compounded or you will receive 10% compound interest every year for 30 years. But over a period of time, if you have invested in a good company, so you are owning that company. If the company is growing, your money will get compounded over a period of time. So basically, you can calculate compounding in mutual funds and stocks in a retrospective manner. Like after 10 years, if I had invested 1 lakh, that became 10 lakhs in 10 years, then you can calculate back that, okay, 10 times 100, the 10 times it grew. So my annual interest rate became 15% or compounded rate. But there is no assured return from first year that if I put 1 lakh, after 10 years, I will get 15% compounded interest. So obviously your stocks and equity will compound like nothing. There's nothing, no in a better investment class than investing in equity and stock market, direct equity or mutual funds.
I think Dr. Harshit.
So I think he's covered it very well. I think I leave it to Dr. Raj.
We'll cover all these topics in great details.
Yeah. And later we will have all the discussion about what compounding, like what all avenues are there and how well they work. And one simple thing in this stock, like when the discussion is there, stocks compound if the stock is not giving out dividend to you. If they are paying you a dividend, then you have to make them grow. You have to reinvest the dividend inside and then make them grow. Otherwise, it will be a simple interest.
So that is basically the stocks will give you the dividend. But in mutual funds, when you invest in a mutual fund scheme, there are two schemes. One is where it's a growth scheme, where if you see the mutual fund name, XYZ mutual fund, bracket mein they'll write a G or they'll write a D. D means a dividend scheme, where they pay out the dividend to you in your account. And G means a growth scheme, where that dividend that they pay out gets reinvested in your own scheme. You don't get the dividend in your bank account, but that gets reinvested. So always we should select growth, the option, the mutual fund with growth option, direct fund and growth funds. They will compound your money.
So, Rohit sir, one question earlier, what Dr. Shivani also pointed out was a very good question, that we end up earning and investing late. So because you have a vast experience and you have taught many person about this, what is the right time to start?
I'm still learning. I'm too young to comment upon that, but I learned after a few years into practice. But I believe the right time to start investing is probably internship or residency itself, even if it means 1,000 rupees or 1,500 rupees a month, like Nilesh said. That gets you into the habit of investing, that gets you start reading, because if you're putting in your money somewhere, you would want to know more about that. You will want to attend more webinars, more seminars related to that. So in fact, I now, because of the amount I'm investing in mutual funds, I regularly read Mutual Fund Insight more than Opthal journals or ET Well. So earlier you start, better it is.
And now we talked about psychology of money. On this, there are multiple such wonderful books like The Intelligent Investor by Mr. Warren Buffett, and novel. I think Mr. Sorry, I keep calling Doctor every time. Dr. Harshit Naval also has
Naval
a book,
Ravikant,
no?
yeah, that's
Naval
what,
Ravikant also
yeah.
has a book.
The
So
almanac of.
yeah, so the problem is we don't have so much time to like go through all these books. So what other avenues are there? How can we like get the gist of this?
So I think I had spoken to Dr. Mohiduri. Dr. Rohit had given one YouTube link, or rather a link for a podcast, which summarizes it in 2 hours. So we can share that link. I mean, it's a discussion more than anything. It's not the entire book, but if somebody wants a shortcut, I think that's the shortest we can get.
And for basically people who are starting afresh with their investments, one of the suggestions I have is to subscribe for ET Wealth. That's like a tabloid which you get on every Monday. It just costs 8 rupees and it covers almost everything in finance, which is finance related news in a very nice way. And once you start reading it initially, probably for a month or 1.5 months, some of the things you may find may not be that useful or you may not understand half of it. But trust me, once you read it regularly, you will understand it has got such an amazing wealth of information. And some of the things which were written in ET Wealth, like a couple of years back, they wrote that the small cap was undervalued and it's the right time to invest in small cap. So if you don't understand small cap, you could have just picked up a decently performing small cap mutual fund and would have started a SIP. You would have got stellar returns now when the market is at an all-time high. So, certain small things that they had specifically warned against cryptocurrencies a few years back. And, if you would have just heeded to that advice, you could have saved a lot of money by not investing in cryptos. So that would be my suggestion. And apart from that, there are wonderful books, The Richest Person in Babylon and the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Rich Dad Poor Dad is a classic.
Absolutely, absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nilesh and I will come up with another webinar next month. We would be very happy that if you can write to YOSI and us about what other topics you guys want us to cover, and any feedbacks and suggestions would be welcome so that we can improve and cover the topics which are most relevant. And if we have made a mistake, yeah,
out
please.
of all the webinars, all the webinars that we are having, the webinar series we are having, this was, I think, the most highly attended because we had around 50 participants at the peak, and around 25 were watching us live on YouTube at that same time. So around 75 YOSI members dialing in. It was a great achievement for the first episode. Thank you all the speakers for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will get back to all of you. I think by next week we should have something ready, sir, to circulate.
Yes, absolutely. We both will. Nilesh, I'll call you. So
Yeah.
we all will work as a team and get things moving. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Rohit. Thank you, Dr. Nilesh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night. Bye.